addressed, my name is Fatimah Abdulrahman. I'm a software QA engineer. Please just give me a moment so I share my slides. Okay. So I'm a software QA engineer at QATechBro, and today I'll be speaking as part of the QATechBro Mentorship Program. And firstly, I want to really appreciate the organizers, QATechBro, and also Case Academy for giving us this platform to learn from one another. And basically, when it comes to modern QA growth, especially in this era of AI, is something that I believe that we all should be excited about. So today we will be talking about AI-assisted test design, how we can turn requirements into test scenarios faster. So before we go right into it, I just want to ask a question. Maybe you can just give a show of hand. How many of us have actually had the opportunity to see a requirement? Could even be a PRD, and then we are like so confused where to start from. Anyone? Okay. I understand that some of us here. Oh, okay, cool. Someone's hand is up. So I understand that some of us here might be quite new to QA, and so some of these terms as I go, if I proceed into what we need to do today, we might not really catch up fast. So because of that, I'm going to also take us through some of those QA terminologies. So today, what are we going to be learning? So we are going to know what a requirement and what a test design is, and also why they matter. We'll also understand test design and test scenarios. And we also need to know basic, like some key AI terms in plain English. And at the end of today's section, we'll have a working prompt template that we can make use of tomorrow. And we'll also get to feel confident using AI as a test design partner. So, like I said, QA foundations. So what is a requirement? It is a description of what a feature or a product should do. So the requirement is answering the question, what are we building? What are we building? Who are we building for? So most times our requirements may live in Confluence documentation, Notion docs, and even Jira tickets. So let's look at this example. So this particular example says that the system shall allow a registered user to reset their password via a secure time-limited link sent to their email, and this will expire after 30 minutes. So this is what, a typical requirement would look like. So talking about sorry, let me go back. So talking about requirements, so for some of us that we've probably worked, we've had some hands-on experience with reviewing requirements. Many of us will know what a PRD is, a product requirement document, right? Sorry, let me move this. Many of us will know what a product requirement document is. So that document is like it gives a high-level overview of what we are building. And in that PRD, we will then have different requirements. So say, for example, the PRD is talking about we building an authentication system for a particular application we are building. And then we know that this particular PRD will have, in terms of the features for authentication, we will have the sign-up flow, we would have the login flow, we'll have forgot password flow. So let's look at that forgot password as a requirement. So yeah, in this case, we have that the system shall allow a registered user to reset their password via a secure time-limited link, which will be sent to their email, and this will expire after 30 minutes. So what is a test design? We are talking about how we can use AI as a test partner to create our test design. So what is a test design? So we need to figure out how to check that this particular feature works and what could break. So that's where this test design now comes in. It answers the question, how do we know that it works? How do we know that, oh, forgot password works? If I put in my email, if I provide my email, I'll get the reset password link. And also, what could go wrong? So oftentimes, we'll have these areas covered. We'll have a happy part. So this is when everything goes well. This is the positive scenarios. Then we'll also have the error parts when something goes wrong intentionally, maybe due to user wrong inputs. And then edge cases. So these are like extreme or unusual situations that you as let's say as a product manager or an engineer would not normally think that users will encounter, because again, we are irrational being, right? And then we also have the unexpected. So the unexpected would be a scenario where that wasn't taught to be written down in the PRD or in that particular requirement. So let's just quickly go further. Now, what is a test scenario? So a test scenario is one specific situation that you want to check. And the skill, when it comes to writing a good test scenario or generating good test scenarios, it's a skill that in order to get right, we need to ask enough of the right questions. So again, someone has something to say? Okay. I thought someone had something to say. Okay. So remember, we have in the previous slide, we are using this example, this password reset flow, where the system allows the registered user to reset their password via a secure time-limited link that will be sent to their email, and this will expire after 30 minutes. So what's the happy part? The happy part is when the user actually enters their correct email, an email that is registered, and then their password. And the negative scenario would be when the user provides, so let's say, for example, we are doing an invalid login now. The negative scenario would be when the user enters the wrong password, and then they'll obviously see an error message. And then an edge case could be when a user enters a special character or a space in their password. So what will happen? So looking at that requirement we saw earlier, we see the happy part, we can see the negative part, and then the edge case. As I explained, the happy part is what works. It's a positive scenario. User enters their email, they receive the password reset link, and then they're able to set their new password successfully. Negative parts would be that the user enters an email that is not registered to the platform, and the system is expected to respond with feedback, maybe an error message, indicating that the email does not exist. And also an edge case here would be to the user clicking on the reset link after 31 minutes. So what happens? So these happy parts, negative parts, edge cases, they are all scenarios that we can uncover from this particular requirement. Again, in a requirement, every word counts. Every word can be a test scenario. So let's move forward. AI foundations, I just want to give us just a quick touch on some basic terms that every QA engineer needs to know. LMM, what's that? It is a large language model. So this, so for example, we have the ChatGPTs, Gemini AI, we have Claude AI. All of these systems, they are trained on massive amounts of text that can predict the most useful response to a user. It doesn't think. What it does is it pattern matches. And when you're making use of these systems, you should take in consideration that it doesn't know your products. So you need to give it context. So let's look at these terms here. What is a prompt? A prompt is simply the instruction you give to AI. So it's like you have a working partner, a working colleague somewhere, and then you give the person instruction, like a task. And if you give a vague prompt, like a vague brief to that to the AI, it will give you a vague output. And also, if you make it specific, you also receive useful outputs. And then context. Context is simply the background info that you give AI, excuse me, so that AI understands your situation. So the more context you give, the more relevant and accurate outputs you would receive. And then the output. The output is the response AI will give you after processing your prompts. And then there's something called hallucination. Yeah, AI gives you a confident, well-written answer that most times is factually wrong. I want to be sure that many of us here have used maybe ChatGPT, and you notice that you are asking questions, it doesn't stop. It will keep giving you output, keep giving you response. And if you're not careful, if you don't review the outputs, you get to find out that what it's saying is wrong. And then you now realize that if you go back to the chat and you say, oh, this thing is wrong, ChatGPT will even respond and tell you, oh, you are correct. So this is what we call hallucination. So we need to, that is why context is also is really, really important. Okay, so AI as your test design partner. So we want to see how we can connect QA and AI together. And then also understand where you, as a QA engineer, is irreplaceable. So before the emergence of AI, so the traditional approach to test design would be that, oh, you as a QA engineer, you are probably after refinement, the PRD or the requirement is ready, and then you are given the requirement to analyze. So what that means is you have to take your time to go through the requirement, understand the requirement, ask questions, and you also need to brainstorm manually to get the scenarios that you need to test for. And again, you then will have to write your test cases one by one. And most times, when you're under pressure, you'll find out that you tend to miss edge cases. And at the end of the day, you find yourself testing a particular feature for more than 2 hours. But with the AI-assisted approach, what do you need to do? You need to paste the requirement into maybe Claude AI or ChatGPT or Gemini, and then it will, based on your structured prompt, it will generate well-structured test scenarios for you. And then so yeah, we are talking about where this particular part now, review, filter, enrich with your knowledge. This is where you, as a QA engineer, you become irreplaceable. Because as much as AI can do a lot of automated tasks, right? There's certain aspects that not yet. Maybe in the future, AI will be able to do. That aspect is your human validation. So that's one aspect that you cannot take away. So what happens? AI has generated the output for you. What do you need to do? You need to review the outputs based on the knowledge you have about the products you are testing. So you need to review the outputs. So basically what you need to do here is review the test scenarios it has generated for you, filter out the ones that might not really be particular to your specific to your application. And then based on your domain knowledge about the product, you can also enrich it. And also it will also generate edge cases for you and gaps will also be uncovered. For some of us that have probably we've tested an application before, we've had hands-on experience. You will notice that when you continue working on the more time you continue working on a particular product, it seems like the lesser you see, you find out that you start sleeping, you start dismissing, not intentionally, but because you're so familiar with the products, you start missing some hidden issues or issues that might even be plain to your eyes, but because you've worked on that product for too long and you're very familiar with it, you miss those issues. And again, you get to spend lesser time generating your test scenarios and with broader coverage. And you also get to use this approach over and over again every sprint. So what does using AI as a test design partner, what does it do well? What can only you do? We talked about it in the previous slide, but this also gives us. So AI can generate many scenarios for you fast, right? And it can structure all of these into clean formats. It can spot gaps and any ambiguity in your requirements. And you can also recall testing techniques and partner based on how you've interacted with it. So what can only you do? You understand your products. AI does not understand your products. It can't assess your product if it doesn't give it context. So you understand your product deeply. It means that you can give it more context. You also can apply risk judgment for your release. So let's assume based on a release is fast approaching and you know that this feature needs to go live. So based on your judgments, based on the risk analysis you've done regarding, what are the critical parts of this feature that needs to go live, you can also, that's where you come in, you can apply that. And also, historic bug patterns. AI doesn't know that. You probably haven't given it maybe your test reports to see what are the frequently occurring or frequently reproduced issues. And then another thing is you can catch user experience issues faster than AI can. And this is because you are interacting, you are bringing your sense of human judgment in, and which, AI has not been able to replace yet. So we have what the co-pilot workflow looks like. So it means that you're working alongside AI and you're using it as an assistive partner. It's basically your partner when you are trying to generate your test scenarios. So you have your requirements and then you prompt AI, and simply when it provides the output for you, you review the outputs based on your human judgment and based on your domain knowledge about the products you're testing. And based on that, you can then enrich the test scenarios that it has generated for you. And at the end of the day, you have a test ready, a test scenario. Your test scenarios are ready. Okay. So like I stated before, AI can assess your app. It doesn't have visibility into the actual system. And so until you give it context, it won't understand what the app is, what the purpose of the app is for, or what the purpose of that feature is. And another thing is it doesn't know your risk tolerance. It doesn't understand your system's release priorities or what's breaking bugs can cost the business. Also, it will hallucinate if you give it vague prompts. So another thing is it's not a replacement for exploratory testing. And when it comes to exploratory testing, we are talking about using your instincts, your user intuition. So all of this is all yours. AI at this point in time cannot take that from you, and this is where you become irreplaceable. So the art of good prompting, let's look at that. So when it comes to prompting, there's a 4-part prompt framework. And the first part is the role. You need to tell AI who it is. Okay. You are on your chat GPT, you're in your chat GPT, for example, and then you need to tell AI that, oh, I'm a senior QA engineer and I probably specialize in mobile app testing. So with this, you've set the lens. That's the first one, role. Second, we have the context. So here you're going to describe the product and the users. So let's assume the product is a mobile application, a mobile payment application that is used by non-technical users. So by providing this, you've stopped generic output. So now AI gets to give you better results based on the context you've provided it with. And then the third part is your requirements. So this is where you actually get to paste your actual requirements, right? Maybe from your ticket or the PRD. And lastly, we have the acts. So here is where you define exactly what you want AI to produce or to generate for you. So probably you have something like generate scenarios covering the happy parts, the negative flow, edge cases, and format it as a table. So yeah, you are specific. Okay, so I want us to go right into a demo, and we'll just get to see like a full workflow in real time of how we can generate our test scenarios from requirements using AI. So yeah, so this is our requirement. So we are saying here that the system, so this requirement says that the system shall allow a registered user to reset their password by requesting a secure time-limited reset link sent to their registered email, which would expire after 30 minutes. And this will enable them to set a new password. But I mean, we can just as I go, we can just keep thinking about it. How many test scenarios do you think you can derive from this requirement? So I'll just give some few time to think about that. Maybe you can drop that in the chat. So every specific, like I said, every specific word in your requirement unlocks a test scenario. So you see this phrase, registered user. What if, then there's a question here that says, what if the user is not registered? it expires after 30 minutes. What if the user clicks the reset password link after 30 minutes or at immediately 30 minutes? Then the secure link. So we are looking at how all of these keywords in this requirement unlocks a test scenario. So the secure link, what if the same link is used twice? What happens? And then set a new password. What if a new password equals the old password? What happens? Okay. Before we go into that, sorry, I would just, okay. So let's go to, so yeah, I'm using Claude AI. So we want to see we want to see the test scenarios that will be generated based on our prompts that will be given Claude. So let's go right into it. So we're going to look at two different prompts, right? Yeah, I want us to look at what a weak prompt, what the output of a weak prompt would look like. And then we also would see what the output of a strong prompt will look like as well. So let's go to our requirement. So this is our requirement, right? And let me just copy that. Let's go to Claude. So I just put the requirements and I'm just going to say generate test scenarios for this requirement. Let's see what it's going to give us. So one thing about Claude is that it will think and think and think. So if we were to use ChatGPT, for example, which most of us would use, okay. Okay. So just give me a moment. Let's make use of ChatGPT so that we can move fast. Okay. Let's do this. All right. Okay. So this is what ChatGPT has generated for us. Valid, it says valid password reset flow. So this is a scenario. Registered user requests password reset with valid email. And it also gives us like steps. It gives us steps and then expected results. And the next scenario says that user enters an email not in system. So let's look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So you see that it generated lots of um test scenarios for us, right? When a user, what happened? So yeah, registered user requests password reset with a valid email. It gives us steps. Remember, we didn't give it context to okay what the app does. We didn't really give it. This prompt is not rich enough. I'm going to show us why. And the second one says user enters an email not in system. User clicks reset password after 30 minutes. User tries to reuse the same reset password after user resets. User enters invalid password. User requests multiple requests, reset links in short time. So this one is even giving us, I mean, some things that I wasn't even expecting that it will give us, right? Some scenarios are actually being were generated. So what happens if the reset email is sent after the request? User modifies token. So you also notice that some of this requirements that it has generated might not be very specific to your application. So for example, let's assume you're testing a mobile application, for example, and this particular one that says cross device reset might not be so much applicable. Token expiring boundary test, use link exactly. And again, you also see that the test scenarios are they're not so descriptive enough, right, for its purpose. And if let's say you are a QA engineer and you're just starting out, you are not so familiar with the products or with the requirements, you might not really know how to go about all of this, validating all of these scenarios, right? Let's go on. So user is logged in, reset password. So what happens? So there's a particular one I am looking for. So what happens if user provides, let's say during the changing of the password, user provides a password they've used before? Does our requirement state that user should not be able to use a password that they probably used before in the past? So these are some of the edge cases that when you provide a structured prompt, it will tend to uncover. And yeah, user. So we're going to do like a quick comparison between this particular prompt and then a well-structured prompt. So let's go. So let's go back here. Okay, so we said that when you use a weak prompt such that you just say generate test cases for this requirement and then you paste the requirement, AI might not really be able to surface, surface enough scenarios. Some edge cases or boundary values might not be generated. You might find out that it may not generate negative flows. It may give you little or no negative flows to cover. And also it might generate test scenarios that are not specific to your application. And in some cases, it can just ignore some specific words in your requirement. So what is missing here? AI doesn't know if it should think like a QA engineer. It doesn't know what platform. It doesn't know who the users are. And it doesn't know what type of scenarios to include, whether you want it to be specific, you want it to add the happy parts, the happy parts, the edge cases, the unexpected. So it doesn't really know what scenarios. It can either give you everything that it thinks, or it might just select a few. And then what outputs do you want this test scenarios to be generated? It doesn't know. It will just guess. If we go back to the one we just did, we didn't give it, we didn't indicate what format it should generate all of these. So it just said, if you want, I can convert this into test cases. So it didn't really tell us, because we didn't provide it with such context. So now let's go over to what a structured prompt will look like. So a structured prompt, remember we talked about the role, the context. We're talking about the four parts of a prompt, right? We talked about the role, the context, the requirements. So there's coverage. Yeah, you need to explicitly state, um, let's say you need to explicitly state how much coverage you want it to generate, and then the format which you want it to present those test scenarios. And then there's also a bonus ask. You can ask it to look for gaps in your requirements and also any assumptions. So let's make use of this particular prompt. So we're going to be saying that we're telling AI now that it is a senior QA engineer who is specialized in testing mobile and web application. So let's assume mobile web application for a payments platform, right? And then context. It's a mobile and web application for non-technical users in emerging markets. And then the next thing here is our requirements. We provide it with the requirements, and then we tell AI, generate test cases. So that's where the coverage now comes in now. Generate test scenarios covering the happy parts, the negative flow, the boundary values, edge cases, and maybe the non-functional scenarios. And I think in the last prompt we gave, it didn't really give us like non-functional scenarios, right? Like in terms of performance, security, and all of that. It didn't really provide scenarios for um, all of those flows. So, and then we're also going to give it a format, right? That, okay, we want you to generate this test scenarios in a table form, and the table form should have these headings: ID, the scenario, the expected result, and then the priority. So let's quickly do that. So I'm just going to copy this. Sorry. Okay, let's just go. Okay, let me put this in slideshow. Okay, I thought to just copy. Okay. Let's go. I'm just going to open a new chat. Okay. Let's do it in the same chat. Okay, hidden copy. Okay, I'll just have to mess this up. So let's just provide everything here. So our requirements. So these are requirements. Happy parents. So we're giving the coverage that we want it to take account of. And then lastly, we tell it to okay. So here we are saying you're a senior QA engineer specializing in testing mobile and web applications for a payment platform. So we're given the context. So I'm just going to leave it here. So this is a mobile or a mobile and web app for non-technical users in emerging markets. The requirements, we already talked about this. And then we need it to generate. So this is where the axe is now. Generate test scenarios covering happy paths, negative flow, all of these, including non-functional scenarios in a table format. All right, so let's eat this and see what it gives us. Okay. So you can see we have over 40 scenarios, over 40 test scenarios. In the previous one, we have 20, and some of them were not really specific to the application. So because we didn't give it context, right? He wasn't able to really give us like fully fleshed out scenarios. But yeah, you see that we said generate test cases covering these. So this is the coverage: happy paths, negative flow, boundary, values, edge cases, and non-functional scenarios in a table format. So with this, it's well structured. So if we begin to go through the scenarios now, you also see that it gives us unexpected results. Remember that the requirement was not, so if you look at this requirement, right, there are some questions that are missing that maybe typically you most likely will have to reach out to the project manager on what the expected behaviors should look like for some scenarios. But with this now, having provided AI with a structured approach, we have expected results generated for us. We also did in the previous prompt that we used that wasn't so structured. But so let's quickly review this particular scenarios that so it says here this is a structured set of test scenarios tailored for a payments platform. And it is both, so it is applicable to both mobile and web, and it's for non, and based on the prompt to give it, non-technical users in emerging markets. So what's the first one here? User request password, User request password reset with a valid email. So what is the expected results here? So it says that the reset email is sent with a valid secure link. Another thing you will notice here is a priority. So it means that in a case where you find yourself so let's say there is a release is to happen, and then there's not enough time for you to probably we want to do a risk analysis of, okay, what is critical to this feature? What scenario is critical to this feature? We can quickly take note of this priority tag here where we can, take priority and execute the test scenarios for the ones that have the high priority, and just take it from the high, the medium, and then the low. So it also gives us user logs in with a new password. So what happens if user clicks reset link within 30 minutes? We also had it in the previous prompts, but it didn't really state the priority, although it gave the expected results. So if we actually go down these test cases, these test scenarios it has generated for us, we will see that we have quite a lot of the happy parts, the negative parts. So take a look at, it says, what happens if so this is a scenario, user submits an empty email field. Will there be a validation email displayed? So notice how we've generated this much test scenarios just from this particular requirement. I'm sure if we were actually given the time to manually do this, right, and probably in a really critical moment, we might not be able to generate all of this. Can you see? We also have some security. We also have some security scenarios as well. So if we don't really have much time to do like a compare and contract, right? But let's just quickly go back to the slide. Okay, so okay. So what has changed? We've given it a role, we gave it context, we specified the coverage, and we also gave it a format. We didn't give the bonus acts, like for it to look for gaps, assumptions, to surface assumptions. So yeah, this is one very important aspect. Reviewing and refining the AI output. Reviewing and refining the AI outputs, right? And this is where you come in. You come in to ensure that everything that AI has generated as test scenarios for you are useful. So you always want to so what are you going to be doing here? You want to confirm, does every scenario actually relate to the requirements? If we actually go back there, we'll find out that some of those scenarios that were generated are not really specific to the application, or some of them are not they are very technical for us to validate maybe on the UI or on the API side. And also, is anything missing that you know from your specific products? So this is where your domain knowledge needs to come in. Having reviewed the scenarios based on your familiarity with the products, you know how the product should work. So you should know how the feature should work. You understand your users. Are priorities accurate for your current release? So you want to go back to the table, check those priorities that it has, it tagged some as high, medium, and low. You want to also review that as well. So are there duplicate or irrelevant scenarios to remove? If there are, you need to take that out. So you could do a follow-up prompt, which is like a refinement prompt. And you probably want to tell AI something like focus more on failure scenarios, add more concrete data for each scenarios, or tell AI to remove the scenarios that are not relevant to user experience, for example. So you don't have to manually do that. Just provide all of this and then AI does the work for you. So some things that we need to watch out for, we'll be talking about user validation, human validation, right? So it's very important that we don't over trust our outputs, right? We should always do a review. AI can sometimes not remember your previous sections, so you can lose context. So you want to always reestablish context at the start of any new conversation if your output quality drops. Confidentiality, it is important that we do not paste sensitive information into public AI tools, right? And unless you are maybe anonymous or you're using company approved tools. And we're almost out of time. Yeah, so 5 things to take away from this section. So we understand that AI generates breadth, right? But then you, as the QA engineer, you bring in depth and you bring in human judgment, which at this point in time, AI has not been able to replace that aspect, human judgment, very important. And also, prompt quality equals to your output quality. So you need to invest in your prompts. We should remember these 4 levers of a good prompt. You need to provide the role, the context, the coverage, and then the format. And remember that every specific role, every specific word in your requirement unlocks a test scenario, right? So if you find out that your requirement is vague, you need to ask questions, right? So that's why you also need to reach out to your maybe your project manager or your technical manager to clarify certain ambiguity, or let's say there's an ambiguity in the requirements, for example, to get better coverage. Or based on your prompts, AI, based on your prompts, let's say you're telling in the prompts you provided, remember we talked about bonus, where we said you need to tell AI to identify the gaps and the assumptions. Remember to run quality gateway checklists after every AI section. Ensure that every scenario that has been generated, right, you're able to trace it to that particular requirement. And lastly, your domain knowledge is the differentiator. So you feed it into your prompts, and that's your fair advantage. So that brings us to the end of the section. I think we'll just use the remaining time left for questions. If you have any question.